What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's weekend recap. So much to get to with MLS Rivalry Week, continuation of the Euros. We're going to jump right in. And of course, we're going to start with El Trafico. Once again, this rivalry delivers. Did not have the potential drama of Gareth Bale and or Giorgio Chiellini debuts. There was no Zlatan-like entrance with dramatic goals, but the game itself, as it almost always is between these two teams, phenomenal. LAFC end up getting the better of the Galaxy. There were some moments in the first half where LAFC were really dangerous in transition, but for the most part, the Galaxy were hanging in there. They had issues in midfield because that LAFC midfield trio is so good no matter who's in there, and the Galaxy did not put a lineup out there capable of dealing with three excellent midfielders in the center of the field. But overall, you have to feel pretty good if you're the Galaxy from an execution, maybe not an execution standpoint, but a managing the game and hanging in there standpoint. And then you give up your goal to Cifuentes on a really good corner kick from Colin Acosta, who's a great free kick deliverer. But that was an execution thing sort of outside the run of play. From a defensive standpoint, Greg Vanney should have felt pretty good about how things were going, even when you give up that first goal. They need to fix the set piece part of it, obviously. But again, from a structure standpoint, Galaxy were doing just fine. They come out in the second half and look really, really good. And Samuel Grandsir shows up with a goal, just kind of pops up on the wing. Really good, difficult finish. Takes his opportunity. The Galaxy didn't have very many in the first half. They get a couple to start the second half, capitalize. And then it's Cifuentes again soon after to restore LAFC's lead. And this is happening just as you feel like the Galaxy are really starting to grow into this game and might even be able to take control of it. And right after that, you get the third from Arango, who may be on his way out of this team to finance the introduction of an even more prolific number 9, which is hard to believe given how good he has been for LAFC since they brought him in. That was the patented LAFC goal. I talked about transition, and just for that split second, those 3 or 4 minutes there, Galaxy lose control, and all of a sudden it's 3-1. Rain Raveloson gets one back on a thumping header, and here come the Galaxy again. And it felt like they were going to find a way to somehow do this again and get that equalizer. They had their opportunities. This was not a comfortable closing out of the game by any means from LAFC. But they are able to hang on, survive some late stress, and get the 3-2 victory. And there are some really big picture things that are worth highlighting here. You take away the first 5 meetings between these teams, and the Galaxy have 4 wins to Galaxy have 5 wins to LAFC's 4. This is getting much tighter. No, the ghosts of Zlatan and what happened at the beginning of this rivalry are not gone. You could tell there was some tenseness and some uneasiness from LAFC in this game. And this was the first time LAFC beat the LA Galaxy in front of fans in the regular season. It is worth pointing out that some of these victories came in the COVID no fans era. So this is going to be a healing process for LAFC, and this was another huge step in sort of getting over this mental barrier that the Galaxy have imposed because of the way this rivalry started. It's also the first time LAFC won in El Trafico by a single goal, which is again a huge deal. A question of, can you actually see out a game and survive some of these sort of series of unfortunate events, or can you just grind it out like they were able to do in this game? It wasn't perfect. They were not particularly great defensively, especially in the second half, but they found a way to win a close game. When they have gotten the better of the Galaxy, it has been a dominant multi-goal victory. You gotta find a way to win these ones too. And this is the first time they've been able to do that. So there is a huge amount of significance in this game and the way they won it moving forward into this rivalry. The Demons are not all gone, but this was another positive step toward erasing at least some of them. The other thing I want to mention here, and this is easier said than done, but looking ahead to the playoffs and what is very likely to be an MLS playoffs controlled by LAFC. They are vulnerable, as they always have been, if you can take them out of transition. They are very, very similar to Liverpool in that sense. Not that they always play on the counter, but so much of what their danger is being able to pin you in, to get the high press going, to force some turnovers, and just like that, the ball's at Carlos Vela's feet, 15, 20 yards from your goal, and he's doing all kinds of damage, and he's got one-on-one opportunities, or their midfield is flying forward. The moments where the Galaxy lost control of this game, it was those transition areas. Those just split-second situations where all of a sudden, here come LAFC, and more times than not, it ends up in the back of the net. That is the part of this that needs to, from a LAFC standpoint, I am still curious about, is can they actually just win a game ugly from start to finish? What happens if those transition moments aren't there? Can you win another way? Now, the flip side to that is keeping them out of transition for 90 minutes is much easier said than done. Same idea with Liverpool, right? They are so well drilled, they are so deep, that it's not just about surviving the first wave. And especially when you start bringing a Gareth Bale into this equation, and potentially another DP number 9, it's can you survive the second iteration when Latif Blessing comes on the field, when Brian Rodriguez comes on the field, whoever it might end up being, right? They're going to make a change, at least one change in midfield, and they're going to make at least one change out wide. Most games, you would have to think. And it is not a coincidence, they have been the best team in the league at the end of games, in that 70-ish minute on. Because maybe you survive the first half, they have a tendency to give up goals in the first half. But can you actually hold on for 45 minutes and not allow them to get control of the game? Because they might be better than any other team in MLS at controlling a game when they need to. Because that's the other part of this is they cannot put their foot on the ball and hold on to a 1-goal lead. That is the next step to where they become truly great. It's what the Sounders have been able to do. It's why they've had so much postseason success. They can beat you any way they need to. I'm not convinced LAFC are there yet. And this game was another reminder of how difficult it is to stay with them for 90 minutes, and also how you can get after them and the weaknesses they still have that need to be addressed if they're going to be lifting MLS Cup here. Other rivalry week things of note. So many fascinating games this weekend. Also some debuts I want to mention. But very quietly, and I'm guilty of this too, I've been harping on about the Sounders. And here they come. It was a matter of time. They are finally here. The only question is whether they can actually catch LAFC and contend for the Supporters' Shield. They're going to be the team nobody wants to play come playoffs. We're going to feel just fine about them. Very quietly, Portland Timbers are the team with the 5-game unbeaten run, 3 wins in that stretch, who just thumped the Sounders in Seattle 3-0. Now, this game turned when Jackson Reagan picked up yellow cards on both sides of halftime in a matter of seconds, the second of which was just a horribly ill-advised tackle on Eric Williamson, certainly deserving of a second yellow. You simply can't do that. You've got to be smarter. So that changed the complexion of the game and really opened things up for the Timbers, who went on to add some insurance goals, make it look worse than it was at that point. But the Timbers PR team also pointed out they are unbeaten in their last 7 trips to Lumen Field. 5 of those were wins, and I believe Giovanni Severese has actually never lost to the Sounders when playing in Seattle, which is incredible. And now these are the first 2 teams out of the playoffs in the West. I like both of their chances, if I'm being honest, with some of the struggles we're seeing from Nashville right now. But it is just sort of fascinating that on the day that the Sounders are raising and celebrating, their CONCACAF Champions League banner and celebrating their CONCACAF Champions League triumph, here come the Timbers to spoil the party when nobody has been talking about them all season. The defense has been shaky for a long time now. But all of a sudden, there's always that team or two that really picks it up in the summer and becomes a force by playoffs. And it's right, there's sort of a collection of teams that are able to do this. And all of a sudden you look up and there they are playing for a conference title or a trip to, or even potentially an MLS Cup, when they really didn't have much business doing that. The Sounders have done it before and the Timbers have done it before. These 2 teams are as good as any in the league at doing it. It is way too early to be giving up on the Timbers. They've still got some work to do. If you're going to tell me one of these teams makes the playoffs, I'm sticking with the Sounders. But if you're going to make me guess how many get in, I'm going to take both. It's finally starting to come together. This group is more than comfortable in those pressure situations. They understand how to turn it on when they need to. And now they're both knocking on the door of the playoffs, and there's plenty of time for the Timbers to continue this. They dug themselves a hole, but they are quickly getting themselves back out of it, and always beating your rival and one of the teams competing for those final playoff spots on their home field always helps. Couple debuts wanted to point out and mention, of course, with this the secondary transfer window opening, there was this opportunity for all of these recent signings from Lorenzo Insigne in Toronto, the LAFC guys, Cucho Hernandez, Hector Herrera in Houston. All of them were eligible to play. We didn't get to see all of them. Insigne is still nursing an injury. Gareth Bale just showed up a matter of hours before El Trafico, so he was understandably not ready to go. But we did get 2. And they involved plenty of intriguing developments and drama. Cucho Hernandez comes on in the second half of a game in which the Chicago Fire led 2-0 at halftime and had Columbus on the ropes. Should also preface that by saying Derek Etienne comes on at halftime with Luis Diaz. Together, those 3 players just take control of the game. Etienne scores twice. Luis Diaz is also terrific, helping set up those goals, and then the perfect script. Chicago gets caught up the field. Not entirely sure what they were doing defensively, but all of a sudden Cucho Hernandez is running from his own side of the field to go chase down a ball, and there's not a defender able to get in front of him. And he chips Gagasolina, and it's 3-2. Huge win for Columbus, because those are points you simply cannot afford to drop when you are trying to get on the right side of the playoff line. Huge to not only get the point back after such a bad first half, but to get all 3. And I will continue saying this. My prediction is that there will not be a more important signing, at least in the secondary transfer window, if not the entirety of additions made to Major League Soccer for this season, than Cucho Hernandez. Because now you look at this Columbus team, if he can sort of slot in right away and continue to make an impact, because he certainly made one in this game. Now all of a sudden, you are talking about him, You're talking about making Derek Etienne's life junior, who's been fairly good this season. Luis Diaz is an underrated player who seems to always have an impact when he gets minutes and has the opportunity to get on the field. Lucas Zellerman behind those guys. And then, of course, you still have Darlington Nagbe back there. That defense has always been solid. Good goalkeeper. This roster is a playoff roster. To me, I got no problem making an argument. It's at least a top 5 roster in the East. Now, the question is, do they have enough time for this all to gel and click to pull themselves up the standings to the point where they get into the playoffs? That's going to be dependent on Cucho Hernandez delivering immediately, which is what he did in his debut. Can he continue doing it moving forward? But he looked the real deal. They were dynamic with all of these guys out there. It was a joy to watch. And I'm just putting everybody on notice right now. Watch out. That was basically what I expected. Now, again, it's the Fire. Got to do it against the better teams. But you can't ask for much more out of Cucho Hernandez in his debut. Huge 3 points to just keep them in contention and just pushing closer and closer to that 7th spot. Hector Herrera learned all kinds of joyful things about life in Major League Soccer. He comes on in the second half of a wild 2-2 draw with FC Dallas. These rivalry games are just fantastic. This one was no different. Stoppage time, 2 goals, plus a red card. Both teams score. There were plenty of controversial, dramatic moments. Jesus Ferreira looks like he's won it for Dallas. Dallas then decides not to clear a ball after it sort of slipped out of the goalkeeper's hands and gets beat to it for some reason. And it's a heartbreaking 2-2 draw from Dallas's perspective. Houston was rocking. And so now you get to bring Hector Herrera into this equation. Houston had a good start against a favorable schedule. They've fallen off since. Maybe he can give them a little bit of a boost. Obviously, he's got all kinds of pedigree. Huge signing just to get this team back to relevance and get some excitement going in Houston again. A city that should be one of the most difficult to play in, but it just hasn't quite gotten there recently. This game helped that immensely. And now having a big-time name like Hector Herrera, so we'll see what the Dynamo can do moving forward, but that was... If El Trafico wasn't so good, that was your game of the week in terms of actual entertainment value, and still probably was. There's just the added emphasis of this being El Trafico that I would give El Trafico a slight edge, but Houston, Dallas did not disappoint in the Texas Derby. And then also, can't go without mentioning the fact that the Philadelphia Union beat DC United 7-0. A Union team that can't score. All of a sudden just put up 7. Julian Carranza had a hat trick and missed a penalty. That's how things are going in DC right now. And for the Union, can this be the kickstart of a run that does not result in a bazillion draws? Can they put together some wins and take control of the Eastern Conference? Because you still have both New York teams there. You still have Montreal there. It is completely up for grabs because nobody's convincing right now. That was as convincing as any win in MLS history. So can you actually build on this, or was this a bizarre one-off? But yeah, I was excited about the possibilities if Gareth Bale joined Taxi Funtas in DC. And now it looks like Wayne Rooney might be coming in. He's got some work to do if that's ends up being what happens, because that was just brutal to watch. Also didn't want to get out of here without mentioning the developments in the Euros over the weekend. Your 2 most impressive wins to date Germany over Denmark, France over Italy, both 4-goal victories. Germany in particular looked great, could have been 6 or 7 against a very, very good Denmark team. All of a sudden, it has really sort of that group has gone from open and questions to clear two favorites. What happens when Spain meets Germany? And for France, we've had some shakiness from England. Norway looked good. But there were Spain fell behind until they got things going. To come out the way France did, nice little reminder that they are right there intending to be a factor until the very end of this tournament as well. This thing is as open as any tournament I can ever remember. Because you looked at it originally, no problem with the idea of Spain and England being favorites. Well, you take out two of the most important players for Spain, including the best player in the world. England looks shaky, and you got questions about how they're dealing with this pressure and this being at home. And some of these teams that are sort of in that top tier or the tier below those two are looking really good. And all of them delivered game one for the most part. There wasn't anybody I was overly concerned. Of the teams you would consider favorites, England was the most concerning from a performance standpoint. Your game of the weekend, and I talked about this on the weekend look ahead during the live show, Netherlands, Sweden. You saw why Sweden has been so good at tournaments recently, why they are so highly rated. They were really good in the first half, but the Netherlands fought back incredibly well in the second to get a 1-1 draw that was very fair. These are at least two of the top five teams in this tournament, in my opinion, right now. And you could also make a case that they're two of the top 7 with how Germany looked, how France looked. Really, just take your pick at this point. It's going to be phenomenal once all of these teams start playing each other in the knockout round. But Netherlands paid a price for getting back in this game. Sarri van Wiedendaal, uber experienced goalkeeper, the only goalkeeper on their squad with any kind of real experience at the international level, exits the game with an injury, as does Eniek Newman, your center back. So two of your core pieces defensively, and Mark Parsons, former NWSL coach, now coaching the Netherlands national team, said it does not look good. Hopefully they're able to get back at some point in this tournament. But it was just an unfortunate injury after injury. Concerned players leaving, getting checked out. Other ones were tough and, sort of were able to come back in and tough through it. But these were not little knocks. It was a scary collision where Van Wiedendaal got hurt. Looks like it might have been a separated shoulder. Don't want to speculate, but it was. She played through for a little bit and then made it very clear I can't go anymore after taking a goal kick. She's the kind of player that can be the difference between you losing in the quarters or the semis and winning the whole thing. She's that good. She's that experienced. So it's just another devastating injury for this tournament that can't seem to catch a break. Hopefully she's able to return. Netherlands going to have no problem getting out of the group at this point, you would think. So hopefully she's back for the knockouts. But Mark Parsons is saying don't count on it. Just terrible news. Hope they are recovering well. And you just hate to see how many injuries are impacting this tournament in a big way. That is all we've got for today's weekend roundup. Be sure to hit that subscribe button both on YouTube and head to Substack, touchlinetalk.substack.com, and subscribe there to get all of the written content delivered directly to your inbox. And we will see you Wednesday for the live show.